The Keyblade will be formed when 7 Guardians of Light do battle against 13 Powers of Darkness in the Fated Place. This is what Master Xehanort worked so hard to achieve after failing in his attempts to create the Keyblade. By separating Ventus and Vanitas, then forcing them to come back together, he would call this a rushed attempt, as well as by separating himself into a Heartless and a Nobody to capture the Princesses of Heart, as well as creating Organization 13 in order to create the conflict. He would, however, eventually put into motion his plan to split himself into 13 Vessels of Darkness, then tasking Mickey and Riku to find the 7 Guardians of Light. But who are the Guardians of Light? What are their Keyblades, and how were they found and brought together throughout the course of the story? Where were they throughout the entire progress of Sora's story? In today's video, we're going to answer this question and explain Kingdom Hearts 7 Guardians of Light. Number 7. Ventus. His Keyblade is known as Wayward Wind. He's actually the only Keyblade wielder to use a reverse grip, where it's actually, instead of facing this way, he actually holds his Keyblade to where it faces backwards, and he strikes using like long slashes, more like kind of throwing a punch but whipping his blade around to cause damage. And his Keyblade is actually the only one who's geared towards that type of a fighting style, which most Keyblades are. Most Keyblades are geared towards their users and their user strength. So Ventus has kind of like a very sad story, and it's all long and drawn out through the events of Kingdom Hearts X, or Union Cross, and Kingdom Hearts Dark Roads. But where we come to see him in the main games and the main timeline of the story is he is actually Master Xehanort's apprentice, and Master Xehanort separated his darkness from him, which put him into a coma. Due to this, his heart sought out the newly born Sora. Now, Ventus is actually the reason why Roxas looks like Sora, why Roxas can dual-wield Keyblades, as well as multiple other things that happen to Sora, because he's got multiple hearts residing within him. I think Sora actually has the most throughout the entire series. But what ultimately comes to the fruition with Ventus is him, Aqua, and Mickey come to a fight with Vanitas, where Vanitas actually does go into his body. And then while Aqua and Mickey are fighting Vanitas in the real world, Ventus is battling Vanitas over the control of his heart. Now, Ventus does eventually win, but this causes him to go into a coma, and for his heart, which is basically broken and need to be repaired, to go and hide within Sora. This is also how Sora is technically able to use a Keyblade. So Sora is the Keyblade's chosen wielder, and I'll explain that in a little while. But Ventus is a master level Keyblade wielder, so it was actually kind of due to this that Sora was even eligible for a Keyblade, because Ventus's heart resides within Sora. And basically, that's where Ventus stays throughout the entire duration of Sora's journey in Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3. And all the way up until they rescue Aqua from the darkness, and I'll get into her next. So, after Ventus goes into his coma, Aqua hides him and actually locks him away, changing the world that they lived in to the world where Organization 13 ultimately uses as their hideout. So basically, Ventus is hiding in plain sight the entire time. But during the events of Kingdom Hearts 3, once they rescue Aqua, Aqua and Sora go to awaken Ven, who has been sleeping this entire time, and Sora uses the power of waking to wake up Ven. Now, once this happens, Ventus and them do actually fight against Vanitas, but Vanitas flees because 3 Guardians is just too much for one darkness to handle. What this eventually leads is to the events of the Keyblade War, where Ventus and Aqua actually do end up managing to save Terra and battle against the darknesses. And the stories just all kind of come together, so we'll just kind of fill in some gaps as we go along. But number 6 is actually Master Aqua. Now, Aqua uses the Keyblade known as Rainfall, and eventually Master Defender, which she inherits from Master Eraqus when he passes away, after being defeated by Terra. Now, Aqua, in order to save her friends, after Terra had been turned into Terra Xehanort, actually goes and confronts Terra Xehanort. Now, she does end up sort of pseudo-winning. Terra Xehanort falls into the darkness. In order to save Terra, who is actually, his heart is not within Terra Xehanort. His heart is actually within some Heartless, and she goes down, she puts her Keyblade armor around him and sends him away with her old Keyblade Rainfall. Now, her armor will actually hang out with Xemnas throughout the entire thing. He'll talk to it like he's talking to an old friend, and this is actually Terra's like lingering parts of his body. But she actually remains in the darkness now, or in the realm of darkness. Now, while she's there, she actually helps to protect some of these slumbering worlds that had fallen to darkness, and ultimately helps to raise them back to the world of light. As well as she just essentially manages to make it to the Dark Ocean, where she's just kind of a person that's helping out. She helps Mickey ultimately find the Kingdom Key D, as well as helping close the gate. She basically protects them from Heartless that were coming from behind. Now, due to this, though, she ends up trapped in the Land of Darkness, and Mickey promises he will go save her. Unfortunately, they don't know how to get into the darkness. Mickey just kind of lucked out into getting in there in the first place. Riku was trapped in there until he ends up at Castle Oblivion, and they kind of just didn't know that Aqua was there, or Mickey did, but he had no way of getting back to her, even though he did promise that he would. So she spends the entire time trapped in the realm of darkness until eventually losing her Keyblade, which we never really see how she does it, but I think personally what happens is the Keyblade chooses to leave, so that way Sora could find it and use it as a key to unlock his way into the realm of darkness to eventually save Aqua. And she ends up going up against, I want to say it was Xehanort, and he actually knocks her into the Dark Ocean, where she basically falls to the darkness. Now, eventually, Riku and Mickey are traveling the realm of darkness, trying to find Aqua so she can be the sixth light. But where they end up finding her, she has already fallen to the darkness, and she actually attacks them. Now, Riku puts up a good fight, but eventually what actually brings her back to the realm of light is Sora finding her Keyblade, the Master Defender, and going to the realm of darkness, and him and Riku teaming up to ultimately bring Aqua back to life, where she would then take them to find Ventus, and then proceed along with Ventus to travel to the Keyblade War and eventually be reunited with Terra throughout the whole conflict. And guys, I promise you, I'm just going to reference the Keyblade War. I will eventually just give a full breakdown of what goes on during the Keyblade War, where the 13 Darknesses clash against the 13 Lights. So after Aqua, we actually have Lee, aka Axel. Now, Axel was a member of the original Organization 13, but prior to that, he was a student of Ansem the Wise. Now, what happens with Axel is him and Lee join the organization in order to find their long-lost friend, who it's very implied that it's basically Kairi, but they don't know what exactly happened to her. Now, I've already done kind of a background on him from his time within the organization, where he befriends Roxas and Shion, how his story played out there. But when he decides, or when he ultimately is reconstituted in his human form, he seeks out the Guardians of Light, and he goes to Yen Sid to learn how to use a Keyblade and fight on their side. He actually does end up saving Riku, Mickey, and Sora from the 13 Darknesses whenever Xehanort's telling them their plan after Sora and Riku fail the Mark of Mastery exam. And then we actually see him first summon his Keyblade, Bond of the Blaze, after he rescues them and brings them back. So after that, him and Kairi go off to train with Merlin and the fairies in a world where time isn't really a factor, and they can just train all the way up till they are super proficient with the Keyblade, about on Sora's level where he's at in Kingdom Hearts 3. Because as you can see in other things, Axel can actually form change his Bond of the Blade Keyblade back into his Eternal Flame Chakrams to use them for attack. And I'm going to explain form changing too, but like I said, a lot of time it's kind of like Riku, how his Way to the Dawn looks a lot like Soul Eater. So Soul Eater is his original weapon, and it form changed for him to become his Keyblade as a weapon he's familiar with into Way to the Dawn. And Riku can actually change Way to the Dawn back to Soul Eater if he chooses. But so essentially, though, Axel and Kairi train with Merlin and the fairies until they're ready to come back to participate in the Keyblade War, where he ultimately goes up against Xemnas and Shion with Kairi, and he ultimately is saved by Roxas. We think his Keyblade's destroyed, but it's actually not. There's actually no way to destroy Keyblade. It was just unconstituted. And he is inevitably reunited with Shion after she gets her memories back through Sora, as well as Roxas, who managed to get a body back through the form of a replica that the organization actually gave to them. And I've kind of been over that in other videos as well, so please go check those out. So they're all reunited, and then the rest of the events of the story happen. So after Lee, though, we actually get number 4, which, like I mentioned, is Kairi. Now, Kairi actually got her Keyblade, Destiny's Embrace, during the events of Kingdom Hearts 2 from Riku. Now, the fun part about Kairi is Kairi is actually a Princess of Heart. So the fact that she chooses to wield a Keyblade, she's actually sort of the exception to the rule in that aspect. She is a Heart of Pure Light that is also able to wield a Keyblade. So she's actually has the potential to become stronger than all the other Keyblade wielders. But so far, we haven't really seen that at this point in the story. We find out that she's going to be one of the chosen 7 Guardians of Light. So she goes to train with Lee with the fairies, and then she comes back. Her and her go after that. And her story kind of ends in Kingdom Hearts 3 when she is actually destroyed by Xehanort to convince Mickey, Riku, and Sora to fight him to create the final keys that he needs to create Kingdom Hearts. Now, this doesn't stop there. Sora does eventually use the power of waking to bring her back, pretty much at the cost of his own life within this world that they're in now. And she, at the end of the story, is actually training with Aqua. And Riku is off trying to find Sora. So Kairi deserves, as one of the main characters, she deserves a long history up to herself. But to give you guys a quick rundown of her history, she was a young girl in Radiant Garden where she met Aqua, who unofficially performed a Keyblade ceremony on her, enabling her to use a Keyblade because she is a Princess of Heart, as well as she touched the Keyblade of a Master Keyblade wielder, so she kind of unofficially gained the potential to use a Keyblade after being given it by Riku. Now, she was also, after this, experimented on by Xehanort and sent off to a different place in one of the time travel pods and sent to the islands where Sora and Riku, where they sort of start to grow up together, and then she becomes separated, and it just kind of all falls into place from there. She's ended up kidnapped by Maleficent. She helps Sora turn back from a Heartless. Kairi is one of the most awesomely well thought out characters, and I would love to just do a history of episode of Kairi, and if you guys would like to see that, please drop the comments down below because I would really love to do that video. But following Kairi, we have another person whose history probably deserves its own video, and that would be King Mickey. Now, Mickey is a Keyblade master and an ex-apprentice of Master Yen Sid, and basically Mickey has been in the gist of this since Birth by Sleep, where he befriends all of the 3 original Keyblade Masters. He helps Aqua defeat Ventus. He is then kind of sucked away. He's the one who is guiding Mickey and Donald to become friends with Sora. He's the one who's setting up all this stuff for Kingdom Hearts 2 so they can ultimately defeat the bad guy. He's the main leader, kind of, as the king, as he should be, of the 7 Guardians, and you kind of would think it would be Sora, but realistically Sora's kind of a goof, so it is really Mickey and Riku, and he is the king, so that does make sense. And he honestly kind of gets sidebarred through a lot, so you don't see just how strong he is, but he is actually shown to be one of the strongest Keyblade Masters on this for the 7 Guardians, and like I said, he kind of deserves his own history of, so I would love to see that, but his story pretty much ends with him, Sora, and Riku going up against Xehanort, and ultimately allowing Sora to go in his place to beat Xehanort, while the rest of them keep the portal closed. And Mickey eventually just, at his end of his story, he just goes back home to Minnie and his wife in his castle to lead his people. And like I said, please let me know if you guys want a history of Mickey from Kingdom Hearts, because I would love to do that video too. And then there's Riku, and I've went over a lot of Riku's past in past videos, like when I talked about Ansem and Heartless and things like that, but essentially, to give you guys a little backstory on Riku, so Riku met Terra while Terra was out looking for Master Xehanort. During that time, Riku is bequeathed a Keyblade by Terra. Now, Aqua ends up meeting Riku as well, realizing he had been bequeathed a Keyblade, and almost bequeathed Sora a Keyblade, but didn't want the Keyblades to get in the way of their friendship. Now, ultimately, however, through the events in Kingdom Hearts 1, Sora actually ends up with Riku's Keyblade, and Riku eventually does take the Keyblade back. So this is why Sora is the Keyblade's chosen wielder. The Keyblade chose to go to Sora as opposed to going to Riku. Now, this was sort of retcon, but if you still want to look at it this way, Sora had the ability to use a Keyblade, but Riku's Keyblade chose Sora over him because Sora had the stronger heart in that moment. Now, after this, however, Riku is used by Maleficent. He is taken over by Ansem the Wise. He eventually learns how to use the powers of Darkness to his advantage, and his weapon, given to him by Maleficent named Soul Eater, eventually changes in between Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories and Kingdom Hearts 2. It actually form changes into his Keyblade, the Way to the Dawn. Now, he uses Way to the Dawn all the way up until Kingdom Hearts 3, where it is actually destroyed in the Realm of Darkness. It's broken in half, and he trades it out for his current Keyblade, Braveheart. Now, through the events of Kingdom Hearts 2 and all the side stories, some notable things Riku does is he captures Roxas for Ansem the Wise. He helps Sora defeat Xemnas. He takes on the Mark of Mastery exam along with Sora and actually becomes a Keyblade Master. He is pivotal in finding Master Aqua in the Realm of Darkness. And then he is pivotal in helping Sora defeat the main bad guys at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, as well as a bunch of other things. Once again, I'm hoping to do a Riku video, and just bear with me here. I'm just trying to give you guys the quick rundown. At the end of the story, though, Riku is with Naminé and hanging out on the beach with everybody, finally happy. However, we see later on that Riku has actually traveled to Quadratum in order to find Sora, who has been transported there and is being looked on by who we can only guess is the Master of Masters, forming the Kingdom Hearts symbol over the moon. And that's pretty much the end of Riku's story as of right now. But finally, we get to the main protagonist, Sora, the actual playable character that you get to play as throughout these entire games. And Sora's history, like all the rest of them, deserves its own video, and if you guys want to see me just do a rundown of characters from Kingdom Hearts, please let me know. But to give you guys a little backstory, as I said before, Sora is harboring Ven's heart while it's recovering within his own. He actually gave some of his heart to Ventus so he could be trained as a Keyblade Master. Now, Ventus plays a big role in Sora, where we'll get to that here in a little bit. So during the events of Kingdom Hearts 1, Sora and Riku are on the beach, and then everything goes down. Sora is actually chosen by Riku's Keyblade to become its wielder. He goes on adventures, he meets Donald and Goofy, essentially is trying to find Riku. He does end up ultimately finding him, freeing him from Ansem the Wise, turning into, over the course of that event, he turns into a Heartless, is turned back by Kairi, he finds all the Princesses of Heart, releasing their hearts. Him and Riku end up defeating Ansem, closing the door to darkness, and ultimately, he then goes to Castle Oblivion, where he tries to rescue Naminé, gets stuck into pods. Now, during this time, however, he was turned into a Heartless, so he actually, since he had a strong heart, he became a Heartless, but he actually created a Nobody. Now, because Ventus is within Sora's heart, Sora's Nobody actually ends up looking like Ventus, as well as having the ability to dual-wield Keyblades, because he is using Sora's Keyblade, as well as Ventus's, and that is why Roxas can dual-wield Keyblades. Now, Roxas eventually goes back to Sora, basically giving up his life so Sora could live. The events of Kingdom Hearts 2 happen. They ended up beating all the members of Organization 13, ultimately turning out and defeating Xemnas. Now, at the end, Sora and Riku team up together to defeat Xemnas. They're trapped in the Realm of Darkness, but they actually managed to come back through a bottle with a note in it from Kairi, and Kairi's light is what I believe actually allows them to leave the Realm of Darkness. Now, after that, they take the Mark of Mastery exam, which Sora does not do all that well in. He does well throughout the story and closing the keyholes, but he ultimately does fall to darkness. He almost becomes Xehanort's 13th vessel, but he is saved by Riku, Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and Axel. After that, though, he basically had a power reset where he had forgotten how to use most of his power, so he goes on a journey throughout Kingdom Hearts 3 to regain his power, most importantly, regain the power of waking. Now, throughout the course of Kingdom Hearts 3, he does regain more of his powers. He learns how to form change his weapons. He's obviously progressed as a Keyblade wielder. And ultimately, though, he is always drawn to trying to help his friends. And that is Sora's greatest strength. That is his friends. He is pivotal in bringing not only Master Aqua back, but also Ventus, whose heart was within him. Throughout the course of the Keyblade War, he actually releases Roxas' heart, as well as saves everybody on multiple occasions. And then ultimately does beat Master Xehanort in the end, and is currently, however, in order to save Kairi, gave up his existence and is currently stuck in Quadratum. And that is a rundown of Sora, and God, main characters are rough. But I'm not done yet. So, also included in the 13 Guardians, I kind of have to talk about some of the 13 Guardians replacements. So this is where we actually can bring in Terra, is Aqua and Ventus's best friend. He is actually a master Keyblade wielder, and over the course of his story, we see him not become a master, but kind of basically become a master, and he bequeaths Riku his Keyblade, like I already said. He actually ends up fighting and defeating his master, Master Ericus, in order to protect Ventus, who he looks at as a little brother. That ultimately comes to them meeting in the Keyblade graveyard, where he 1v1s Master Xehanort and wins until Xehanort steals his body, where his anger during that fight was so hard, his Keyblade armor, as well as his Keyblade Earthshaker or End of the Earth, I don't exactly remember which one of his Keyblades Lingering Will uses, actually sticks around in the Keyblade graveyard to become a hidden boss, as well as save your butt on multiple occasions throughout the show. And his heart, however, is ultimately trapped inside of a Heartless. Now, his body being taken over by Master Xehanort goes on a whole thing and is split at some points, and I've already done those videos, and you guys can probably find those by clicking the card. But he is ultimately brought back in his Terra Xehanort form in Kingdom Hearts 3 to be a vessel for Xehanort, but he is ultimately saved by Sora, Ventus, and Aqua, as well as his Heartless, who comes back and through the help of Sora actually manages to regain his control of his body. And he ends with us finding out that Master Ericus' soul or heart was actually hiding within Terra, and comes out to ultimately convince Master Xehanort to just kind of call it quits, and they go into the afterlife together. Terra, Aqua, and Ventus honestly have the saddest story arcs throughout all of Kingdom Hearts, and I don't care what anybody says. Like, their story truly hurts, and when they come back together, it is truly a very sad moment. So next up after Terra, however, we actually get Roxas as well as Xion. So I kind of want to lump these two in with one another, so because their stories are kind of connected. So what Xion is, so I've already explained how Roxas is Sora's nobody and why he looks like Ventus and why he can dual-wield Keyblades, his Keyblades being Oathkeeper and Oblivion. Now, during the course of his story, Xion is created to siphon his and Sora's memories in order to create a more perfect vessel, one that's more under controlled by Organization 13. Now, Roxas is ultimately still hiding and residing within Sora's heart. Now, Xion, however, they bring back as a replica, even though no one can remember her name, because that's how her ending in their series worked. And they ultimately, however, Xion does regain her memories. Roxas manages to come back through the ability of a replica, which is, like I said, a video I've already talked on. And then they team up with Axel to ultimately take down Xemnas, and I love how all three of them come back together, and it's just a very happy moment. A lot of happy moments in Kingdom Hearts 3. But even then, I'm not done there yet. So then I can talk about some allies that the 7 Guardians have, and that would be Donald, Goofy, as well as Master Yensid. So Donald and Goofy are Sora's companions. They were tasked by the king to follow the key, and then they just kind of figured that would be the Keyblade. It was kind of weird to me that up until that point, they didn't know that the king could also wield multiple Keyblades. And I actually forgot to go into this in a little bit more detail. Mickey's Keyblades are actually the Star Seeker, the Kingdom Key D, and then the Star Cluster Keyblades. So I'm just going to throw that here. I forgot to mention a little while ago. But Donald and Goofy are basically by Sora's side throughout the entirety of his story arcs in Kingdom Hearts, as well as being the mage and knight of the kingdom under Mickey and his most trusted friends and advisors. So they have a very large importance, as well as the final one being Master Yensid, who can take all the credit for all of this because he was Mickey's master. He taught Mickey how to use a Keyblade, and he's essentially the puppet master. He's the wise elder pulling the strings, kind of sending everybody off in the right directions, and all of them do truly respect him as the ultimate Keyblade master. He is the most experienced master that is currently alive, with the exception of Master Xehanort, but since he passed away, he is pretty much it, and so they all flock to him for his wisdom and guidance, as they should. And guys, that is it. That is everything that I know about on these 7 Guardians of Light. I'm sorry I kind of rushed through a bunch of it, but I would ultimately like to give all of them their own videos. And if you guys would like to see that, please comment down below with any of them you would like to see me do a way more in-depth analysis on, who you would like to go first, and I will definitely try and get around to doing that. And while you're down there, guys, please remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you never miss another video from me, and I will see you guys in the next video.